welcome everybody. I'm delighted to be hosting this conversation with Josh Tetrick and Dalad Kambhu. We don't have that much time, so I'm just going to get on with it. Guys, I just wanted to ask both of you, your food philosophy. Dalad, you're a Michelin-starred chef. Josh, you're an entrepreneur doing funky things with technology. Just what's your attitude to food? Dalad, maybe you can start.
What is my attitude toward food? What do
philosophy.
I think about philosophy? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So, it's been quite a journey because I grew up in Thailand and I lived in America for quite some time, and then now I live in Europe. And you've seen that the way people eat in different places are very different. But in general, my philosophy of food is that we should eat well. And it's not just about eating things that are being labeled organic or bio, but we should eat things that come from the farmers that treat the products well, but they also treated the land really, really well. And when it comes to, because, if you eat those products, you not only, eat things that's good for your body, but you also think that's good for the earth, for the environment, and good for, in the end, for the nature. And that's sort of like one of the big ways that we can fight like the global warming. Because of the agriculture has been, massively destructive to the world and not very thoughtful of how they've done it. And when it comes to eating meat, I always believe less is better. When I was living in America, I was quite shocked because people eat so much meat and so much protein, and this was like something they needed. Versus in Europe is a bit different. Of course, in different countries are very different. And so in Thailand, when I was growing up, we don't eat that much meat. And with the influence of the Western world, nowadays, people just want to eat steak and fish and all this thing all the time. And I'm just not. Personally, I don't think that's necessary. I think we overconsume animal products, and I think we can do better.
Okay. Good for the environment. That's something you share, surely, Josh.
I think we share a lot of that. I think eating well is a basic right. I think it's not any more complicated than that for me. And when I think about eating well, it has two elements to it. The first is human health, and then the second is planet health. And every human being on this planet should be able to access food that is healthy for them and it's healthy for the planet. And unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in today. But that's the way the food system should work. Our food system should reflect some basic values that I think we all share: kindness, compassion, I care for the planet. And I think there are all sorts of ways to achieve that. From the great work that chefs do in restaurants, to farmers markets, to entirely different approaches in technology. And I think they're all required in order to make that right actually a reality. And that's what we're all fighting for.
Yeah, sure. Dalad, since this is the panel on future of food, and it's a technology conference as well, I was just wondering, what's your take on the new plant-based proteins? I'm not talking about, when I talk about plant-based, it's not about I'm not talking vegetables. I'm talking, the high-tech analogs like Beyond Meat or Just Egg that Eat Just make. I don't know if you've tried any or. What's your feeling about that?
So you didn't make it, right, Josh? So I'm just kidding. It's not like it's your product, right? I personally open up to it, and I do see it as part of our future. But I think until we get there, where we start eating all this, man-made protein that tastes like meat, why don't we eat more, local vegetables that grow by small farmers first? Because I do see it with myself, and I know it's kind of hard to explain to people sometimes, but when I brought, for example, my team to visit small farmers, and when I see how the land at work, and you see the land next door look like shit and dry and really unhealthy, and you see the land that small farmer does, that they dig the land themselves, use like natural fibers, wool, and then put the land layers of dirt on top, and then they grow the vegetables so thoughtfully, and they work around the land. You see that they make these amazing vegetables, and there are plenty of them. There are enough of them, and then more can be made. If we all support more of them, then they can actually and pay a little bit more, and they can definitely be more of those. And I think the idea of eating the man-made protein, there's a lot of questions into it. Do we need them now? Maybe in certain area, yes, because people need so much protein and stuff like that. And of course, men, women are different ways, different need, different body. As an Asian person, I just have a very different diet, growing up. And B, is it healthy to make it? Is it good for the planet? Like George said earlier, is it good for the planet to make it? The emission is caused. Does it come in plastic? Is it good to have that distribute around the world with plastic? What are side effects? Is there anything, like there's many questions into it, but of course I'm open to it. But I just do think the biggest thing we forget to think about it, like before we get that far, is it better and might be smarter to work with the local products first? Like instead of eating meat 5 times a week, once a month, or, start with once a week. Fish, instead of eating fish, every dinner you go out to dinner, you want to eat fish because you think it's healthy. Why don't you eat more vegetables? And, you have less of a fish, and you don't do farm fish. You only do live caught fish, done by the farmer who don't disturb the oceans. I think there are many things to think about and to talk about before we can say like, yes, that's the solution of the world.
Wow, that's a lot there for maybe Josh to tackle. Why not just eat vegetables, like they are? Why do you have to process them into something that, do we know what's in them exactly? Is it a bit creepy? I don't know. I have tried it myself, but, is it all packaged? Is it really environmentally friendly?
Yeah, so I'll unpack a few things. So I think first, we believe in evidence-based nutrition. And if you look at the evidence, what it tells you is that whole plants are best. No question. Kale, squash, sweet potatoes, carrots, arugula, apples, oranges. When you're thinking about optimizing your own health and the planet's health, there's no question that whole plants are best. So we couldn't agree more on that front. Now, it's an analogy with transportation. Similarly to whole plants, walking or biking to work is better than taking an electric car to work. It's certainly a lot better than taking an internal combustion engine car to work. The reality of the world that we live in today is everyone is not going to bike and everyone is not going to walk. Whether because they don't have enough time, their workplace is too far away, they want to have a quiet place to talk. Whatever the reason is, we're human, we're imperfect. So you need electric cars, right? So why I think food technology and some of the approaches that we're doing are necessary is we don't live in a world of perfection. We live in a world of very fallible human beings. And we need to figure out a way to make things better. Not perfect, but we do believe better is good. So the way that we think about it is there are multiple approaches, just like in transportation, to making a better, healthier food system that fulfills, I think, the right of eating well. It's whole plants, it's local farmers markets, it's building the capacity within farmers around the world to be able to bring their crops to more people. And it's different approaches to get away from animal farming, particularly conventional, high-intensity animal farming, into something a lot better. Now, on the processing front, I'm drinking a cup of coffee right now. This coffee comes from a bean. That bean is processed. And I think sometimes we get a little bit lost in the word processed or man-made. Is this cup of coffee man-made? Because someone had to pluck the bean, someone had to mill the bean, someone had to grind the bean, someone had to filter it, and now I have my cup of coffee, right? That's not exactly the same thing as maybe some other highly processed foods like a Twinkie, as an example, right? So there's a spectrum of processing. When it comes to what we do, we work with farmers to grow a bean called the mung bean that's been in the food system for over 4,000 years. We then mill that mung bean into a flour. We take that flour, we spin it down so the protein is separated from the fat and the fiber and the starch, just like glass noodles, except instead of using the starch, we're using the protein. And then we add non-GMO ingredients to it, like oil and turmeric, and make the product. But that's how we think about things. We don't have a lot of time to get this food system back on track. And I think it requires the talent and the energy of lots of folks across the spectrum to be able to make it better.
So the analogy is Just Egg is the electric scooter of food, maybe.
Having some whole plants, to me, without any question at all, is better than having Just Egg for breakfast. Indisputable.
Dalad, don't know what you think about what Josh said, but can you ever envisage a situation where you serve the high-tech egg or high-tech burgers or meat in your restaurant? I mean, I think there are the chefs in America who serve some of the burgers and stuff.
Right. The thing that is that my restaurant, we sort of like focus on locals and regional products. So we only, right, for the time being, we only use stuff that as much as possible that made in Germany or in the regional, even, you know, not even too far off. Of course, there always like Thai herbs and all of the things, and or like, you know, our octopus, which is like such a hit classic that we couldn't take off the menu, that not necessarily came from like south of Germany because there's no ocean there. But overall, I would say like 80% of our products is like local. So we kind of focus on that. It's just that my approach is that if I can show people that they can, you know, I have this, for example, we just do celeriac dish, is a celeriac roots. We just pan fry them, that's it. And we serve it like a really delicious Thai dressing and with this spinach which you grow, which is like Vietnamese spinach, but you can find them in Germany as well in some farm. For example, if people eat that and they're thinking that, oh, I can go home and I can roast the celeriac in the oven or pan fried it and I can eat it like that. I think for me, right now, that's the most impactful that I think I can do for people, because that means it's directly they're going to go to the farmer market, they're going to buy more stuff. Because the problem we have in the winter is that people just like, oh, root vegetable, oh, like, which is so delicious, right? But people are like, oh, we don't want to eat it because it's again and again. And then that's when people start going to a restaurant that import things coming in, or like eating more fish as a farm. So for me, in my situation in Germany, in Berlin, where we are landlocked, we don't really have like connection to the sea. Our resource these vegetables, and I think for now, for the time being, it's as a chef, it's important to be able to present them in the way so creatively that inspire people. Like you know, we make pumpkin salad, raw pumpkin salad for trial the other day. You know, we make many things that I was like, oh, I'm actually quite proud of myself, because 5 years ago I wouldn't be imagined to do all these things. You know, and
sounds delicious. Sounds delicious. Josh, if you were trying to sell your products to Dalad to use in a restaurant,
I'll try.
What would you say?
I would tell Dalad a couple things. I'd say, one, Dalad, we actually make our protein in Germany.
And you import them to America?
No, so we make our protein in Western Minnesota and in Germany. And the German facility, yes, goes to the United States, but it's primarily for expansion in Western Europe.
Okay, then maybe I'll try it.
There you go.
Right, yeah, but it's just right now, you know, I think there's a lot of small farmers that like perhaps you should meet with them and use the product from them, you know, that they're very much needed as a support. And, you know, we try our best. But for example, I went to a friend's farm the other day, and it's kind of sad when the lockdown came out. It was really heartbreaking because I know they have so much kills, they have so much krabi. She has this like 2-year-old baby. They look like 4, like super huge because he's eating so much healthy. I don't know what. And then you know that they're all going to be gone and going to be waste because the lockdown came in and restaurants are opening and no one's going to buy it, you know. And so this is like why for me, like personally, I have the connection with them, because I know there are the frontier that right now, there are the real heroes in our industry that nobody giving up credit to them. Maybe some people visit, make one post of them, but they're really doing the work that we really needed to happen, you know. So if you could buy stuff from them, that would be great.
The second thing I would say to Dalad is, for us, when we think about impact, we think about reducing carbon emissions, water, and also improving the livelihood of farmers. So today, for example, for our operations in Germany, we're going to be sourcing beans from East Africa. So I used to live in Nairobi, Kenya, and farmers don't have the easiest time getting their crops to a market in East Africa. And when we put a little bit of extra money in a farmer's pocket, it means it's a lot more likely that he's going to send his young daughter to school as opposed to having her work the fields. And then finally, the third thing I would say is, I think it's totally okay if Dalad doesn't serve Just Egg, because if, let's say I was an electric car maker, right? And there was an elite hiking outfit in Germany. So this outfit really helped people understand the land and the best trails in Germany. I don't need to sell them an electric car. I think the work that they're doing is actually moving the system to a better place, not a worse place, right? So I find much of what Dalad is saying to be entirely aligned with my mission to move the food system from the really ugly place it is today into a world that reflects our values much more. So it doesn't have to be right for everyone.
The only thing that I would say, you know, like I think like the biggest challenge is like there's so many people with the mentality stuck with like I need to eat big piece of meat every other day. And I do agree that like if we can change our mind to eat your product instead, the world will be in a much better place. You know, and I think that's probably the biggest challenge, because I do still, you know, I myself experience, especially being a Thai restaurant, that people expect to eat, you know, the vision of the sheep holiday in Thailand 20 years ago that I don't know what they ate because I never ate them, and no Thai people eat them. That, you know, with the mentality of meat together is extremely challenging, because people kind of expect to see like the big piece of meat, a big, you know, all this thing that it just really, really, really worrisome. And you don't need that much of protein from animal. You can substitute them from plant-based. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I think,
right.
guys, it's been really interesting. I'd love to speak a bit more, and maybe in the future, once all this has died down, we can gather in Berlin and in Dalad's restaurant over a meal and chat over a meal. It's been fun. The time is up. And
Nico is back.
And Nico is back.
They just looped me back in. What's going on? Totally unprepared. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Emiko, Dalad, Josh, thank you so much.